Alright, so let's look at the color theme for this game. And as we discussed, color is very important into the theme of the Pokemon games. And yeah, so Scarlet and Violet. So maybe the theme I thought for this game was they're trying to show the range or the spectrum of visible light, of the colors in visible light, right? So we have red, which is the which is the longest wavelength, but the lowest frequency. Or yeah, and we have violet, which is the shortest wavelength and the faster frequency. So those are our color ranges in between red, the lowest, and the highest violet. And below red, what we can't see, we have infrared, and above violet, a wave that we can't see is ultraviolet. So that's the range right there. And ironically, just as a note, pink or magenta is not a real color. It's actually a mixes of violet or blue or red. So it kind of creates a false circle of a color wheel by mixing in those two colors. So I thought that was very interesting. But obviously, we already have a Pokemon game with red as the color, so that's why it's called Scarlet, and this one's called Violet. Maybe to even match the endings of the game names. Let Violet, Scarlet. So that's okay. That's cool. This is the range that humans can see. Anything above or below this range, we cannot see. So there's the color theme for the game. So now we'll check out some shared traits of Koraidon and Miraidon, the titular Pokemon of the game. So Koraidon, oh, let's do this is first. Both of them are reptilian in the way they look, and in the in-game they're dragon types. Koraidon is fighting and dragon, whereas Miraidon is electric and dragon. So what do they really represent? So Koraidon represents the past in this game, and Miraidon represents the future. So, and also since they both look like motorcycles as well, as you can see, and they can transform into forms of flying, and this is, we'll go over Cyclizar as well. They represent some sort of travel in the game? Like you might think it's just physical travel, but I also thought of, do they represent vehicles of consciousness also? You might be like, whoa, what is he talking about? Well, we'll go over this anyway. That's fine. So Koraidon, as you can see, he's more, or it or she is more jungle-like, very primal, like a dinosaur. You know, in the past, it shows that more archaic nature or wildness to it. And Miraidon, on the other side, represents the future of technology, kind of like this military type of advanced technology. So they both have their own forms of strength and what they represent in that term. And even if you look at the way they look, Koraidon has more feathers, more spikes, looks more like a primal animal in its wild form. Whereas Miraidon is more, even the shapes, instead of spikes and disjoints, it's more of a smooth, sleek shape to show it's more aerodynamic, like technology. And interesting, their types too. Miraidon is electric, obviously technology. It's a robot. Electric and dragon. Maybe they could have chose steel, but electric's a good choice, I would say. And fighting for Koraidon, a lot of people say it would maybe be more appropriate to fire, but that would. I think fighting is a better choice because fighting is more. You could say that he's more. It's more physical, and that's more non-physical or special, as you would say, even in Pokemon. So that's very interesting. So in between the past, the ancient past, and the far technological future, we have Cyclizar, a normal and dragon type, and interestingly, it sits at the color green on the color spectrum, right in the middle between red and violet. And green, he can also represent Earth, Mother Earth, or nature energy in a sense, because it's green, it's in between violet and red. It's not as primal as Koraidon at all, and it's not as technologically advanced at all as Miraidon, so it looks more balanced right in the middle. So that's pretty cool. And interestingly, obviously he can't fly, or she or it, I don't know the gender ratio for this Pokemon species, can't fly compared to Koraidon and Miraidon. So, and maybe also his name is Cyclozar, so cycle could also, as in motorcycle, as the way they travel, but it could also mean cycle as in time, you know, the cycles of time, past, present, future. So now we'll look at some other meanings of the for Koraidon and Miraidon, mainly representing the colors, scarlet and violet, or sometimes we could just call scarlet red. You know, scarlet is, I would say, in between red and orange, but we can maybe even go with both of these, to be honest, but we'll stick to the red because that's what it represents theme-wise. We already discussed why Pokemon already has a game called Pokemon Red. So this is Scarlet and Violet. So we have the chakra system. Like, I'm not trying to talk about New Age spirituality or anything like that. Apparently there's different theories on the chakras. They're actually energy portals connecting to parts of the body, or also the other, or maybe chakras are just something where you can be hacked into as energy portals. They're explained as this is here. I got it from this website, Learn Vedic Astrology. Chakras is a Sanskrit word meaning wheels or circles, which are connected to 7 different energy levels in the human body, symbolizing 7 colors of rainbow. These chakras function as valves that either let energy in or out. It's believed that chakras regulate all functions of our body, mind, and spirit. So let's look at, it's just the main colors we got to cover here. Okay, so first chakra, which is at the base, and you can kind of see the body parts associated kind of at the base. You know, your legs, your reproductive organs, your some of the leftover, the digestive tract, is the root chakra, the root. So the root chakra is for instinct, survival, and sense of security. So very much like Koraidon's theme of the past, or primal, or primitive in a sense. And then if we look at Miraidon, violet, so the highest chakra actually, top of the head, crown of the head, is violet, is the crown chakra, is violet. So 7 chakra is violet. It's called the crown chakra, which means spiritual connection, knowledge, and unity. Okay, interesting. And just as a funny thing, the DLC was called the Indigo Disc. So we can even look at for that is 6th chakra is indigo, also known as the third eye, which is responsible for psychic abilities and imagination. So we'll go back to that later why. But right now we're looking at red as in survival, primitive, sense of security, instinct for scarlet, and purple, or not purple, sorry, this is violet for violet. That means spiritual connection, knowledge, and unity. And maybe we can also say for Cyclozar is right in the middle. We don't want to be going too much off theme, but we can also say for the teal mask, it can represent a mix of those two, but we're just kind of speculating, reading what these symbols means. Maybe they're not intentional, and just kind of came up. But the place that the game takes in is in Spain, and Spain had a connection. I seen online while researching from another Pokemon fan. So Spain had a connection to China through the Silk Road, and probably a bit of other places too, such as India. I really have to research that, but you can interestingly see that throughout Barcelona you have these stories of dragons. You know, there is a European dragon, but they do have these Chinese looking dragons, kind of these serpentine dragons. In Barcelona you can see, and even a more modern, newer art, more like a a lizard-looking reptile. Kind of looks like Cyclosaur. I'm just kidding. So now we'll be looking at Koraidon a bit and just kind of breaking down how it looks. I mean, this is not discussed by other PokeTubers, but we'll just see how it is. So it's obviously based on a lizard, and its motorcycle wheel kind of is represented by, I believe it's called what's it called? A dewlap? Yes, a dewlap. So that flap right there on the lizard is called a dewlap. It's pretty much for showing off and for attracting mates. So very primal in its usage right there. And here's an example of kind of just somebody's concept art of a dinosaur with feathers. So it looks very bird-like, obviously, but it's I'm trying to show you the reptile base, the very reptilian look of this primal creature, Koraidon. You know, he has like sort of like a native or ancient, indigenous kind of feathers on his head. He has a lot of spikes. You know, very primal looking. And of course, Korai in Japanese, Korai means the past, pretty much, from time immemorial, ancient, time-honored. And I've also seen that Koraidon seems also a bit based on Quetzalcoatl. So Rayquaza is also apparently somewhat based on Quetzalcoatl. But it's interesting that, excuse me, the Spanish also went to South America, and you can see a lot of these more the Mayans, the ancient more indigenous group in where was it, in the Aztec area, I think of South America, some parts of Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. They have Quetzalcoatl, who's this winged serpent. So as a winged serpent, that's kind of, I would say, one of the other representations for Koraidon, and they kind of have this ancient or temple, very primal look as well. So Quetzalcoatl was an Aztec and Mayan creator god who was also the patron of rain, science, agriculture, and much more. His name means feathered serpent in Nahuatl, the Aztec language, and he was depicted as a combination of the green quetzal bird and a serpent. So, I mean, I'm not sure if Koraidon can learn rain dance, but he definitely has. We'll go over his ability, but he can activate the sun. So, you know what? We'll go over Miraidon as well now. So Miraidon, on the other half, is more of a futuristic looking reptile. You can kind of see the themes going for there. Still very lizard-like, like Koraidon. But I would say it looks very much like a jet. Like even you could fly with Miraidon later in the game. His back legs pretty much propelled jet fuel. It's like a jet engine or jet fire. And interestingly, I'm not sure if it's intentional or not, but the way it is posed, it almost looks like it's meditating and floating. It's like levitating, pretty much. So that could be another theme with the jet, or even primal for Koraidon could mean he's more grounded, and Miraidon he's more elevated by this special force, so called. So another interesting thing is that they in ancient India, I believe it's, or the Vedas or Hinduism, they talk about Kundalini energy, which is basically a serpent energy that's coiled at the spine that goes all the way from the root chakra all the way to the crown, and some sort of activated energy. So I'm not going to go into if that's good for you or if that's bad for you, but you obviously don't want to be opening up portals to yourself if you believe these things. So be 100% aware of what you practice and what you do. But I thought that was very interesting that that's what Miraidon represents in that sense. And Miraidon, of course, means future in Japan. In Japanese. The future, usually distant, future tense, and the world to come. So there's some interesting definitions too. So for future tense, they put the precognition is the act of using spiritual power to know things that will occur in the future. And of course, Miraidon, as we said, looks very technologically advanced, more sleek shapes as opposed to Koraidon. And you can kind of see the electricity kind of coming out through there. So it's kind of like those pseudo feathers or spike design. And some other things, it looks like a more advanced or sleeker motorcycle. Whereas, you know what, the funny thing about Koraidon is that everyone thought his motorcycle would move. So I've seen regular fans who don't like Pokemon assume that would have been dumb because they randomly seen it from my point of view. But then Koraidon's actually wheel sort of spins, so he looks more like a motorcycle. And sorry, Miraidon. I had to be more aware of what I say. Miraidon. It actually spins, whereas Koraidon's doesn't spin. He kind of walks, so he's more primitive. And again, Miraidon's more futuristic. But anyways, another interesting thing, maybe this could be a theme, is that there used to be, I forgot where exactly, but this ancient hieroglyph where they showcase a helicopter, but they also have other flying machines. So how could the ancients know of the future, where they have so-called airplanes, saucers and jets? So I thought that was an interesting tie-in to Miraidon, even though it is the future and more like a technically advanced kind of creature or robot. You can even see that its eyes are pixelated, kind of like those LED screens, or I think it's LCD, I forgot. Anyways, but it looks like, here's an example when people used to play Pokemon Go too much. Drive now, catch Pokemon later. But you can see kind of that same screen effect, and it's interesting to see here that even though it's supposedly a super high advanced technology, the most primitive thing on it could be maybe even its pixel graphics, even though it's color though. So that's a little breakdown on Koraidon and Miraidon.